So,
Good
Sam,
morning.
great to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Thanks for being here.
yeah, you're over up in Canada, correct? You're out.
Up in Canada in the art studio, writing
Love
solo
it.
at 8 a.m.
Look at that nice selfie view there. So, Sam, thank you very much for being on. And if you guys are just tuning in, you're in for a special treat today. So, I've known about Sam's work probably for it seems like at least 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. I remember seeing your work early on and being like, wow, that is amazing. Again, I'm in the menswear space. So to be able to see somebody taking something that we work in, at the time, I think I had my clothing or a tailored suit. So this is even probably longer. And Sam, just to refresh me, how long have you been doing this? A decade or
8.5 years?
8.5 years. So it
That's
had to have been. It had to have been about when you started out. Because I remember seeing some of your first pieces up and you were getting featured. And again, I had my custom clothier and I'm thinking, this is amazing. She's taking just suits, but she's doing something. She's making this beautiful art. I didn't have no idea how big your art was, but I remember just seeing it and thinking, well, this would be great, from a website guy. I'm thinking, this would be great if she could just make, one of these a day and put them on my website. That's what I was thinking initially, until I realized these are huge pieces of artwork. And this is like a whole different level. But I remember I said that
email, by the way, when you first contacted me, you're like, no, I got in touch with you about 5 years ago. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I went and fished out that email and the tone was so different because the second time around, you're like, this is an original piece of artwork. I would like to own one of these. And I was like, okay. And then you invited me to Atlanta, which was great.
I did. We talked, I think, I sent you that email approximately about 5-6 years ago. And then, so you actually have that on record. And so I inquired how much was your artwork at the time. And I remember at the time it was outside of my price range. I really wasn't making much money with my businesses. I'm like, okay, this is like on my, my bucket list. I got to get one of these pieces of art. But I move on, focus on other things in my business. I come back and it's our last Menfluential in Atlanta, and I invite you out. And you come out. You came out with your mother, which was awesome.
I know, and I was like, "Who is this guy? He's the real deal." There was like 400 people staring front and center in this conference center, like just staring at you, listening, like hanging off every word. And I was like, "I have no idea who you are and the magnitude of your reach."
We had a great time, and thank you again so much for coming out. And you got to see what Menfluential is all about, and got to meet the people. So, guys, if you are not familiar, because Reason's asking, what are they talking about? We're talking about the art of Samara Shuter. So, I said that correctly? Samara Shuter?
Oh, so it's Samara, actually.
Samara.
I'm from Montreal, so the French alphabet.
Guys, Samara,
right?
Yeah,
so it's like
I'll just call you Sam. I'll just go with the Sam.
Everybody just calls me Sam.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? We're talking about fine art and original painting.
Exactly.
Recent, I am in Toronto. I am a fine artist and painter. As you can see behind me, this is a large-scale piece, unrelated to the menswear industry, but a sort of a geo-abstract piece that we started working on last year. But more specifically to what Antonio and I are discussing is a piece along the lines of this guy right here.
All right, guys, take a look at this. So I think when people see this online, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What do you like the fruit? Was this the drive-by fruiting or?
This is actually, this guy's called Juicy Fruit. The
Juicy
one
Fruit.
I were originally discussing was Margarita Man. And the first of its kind was Flyby Fruiting.
Exactly. Flyby Fruiting.
I might even have him in here somewhere to share with you. It's trying to nail this camera situation. You can see here is my old studio setup, just to give you an idea for scale as far as how large the pieces are. I believe some of these guys, like, oh, here's there you go. Here's the one you're referring to.
Yep.
This guy right here. And then this one that you were into, which is
some of my favorites, the Western ones with the boots.
Yeah, the Western pieces. This guy is about 6.5 feet tall. So they're pretty big. Like you can get an idea, like just behind my shoulder here. If you see the size of that round canvas, that's 6 feet in diameter.
Okay.
So that'll give you an idea of scale.
Now, you've had pieces that are absolutely huge, like what, like 12, 14 feet long? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And I think one of the larger multi-suit pieces, as far as suits goes, I think my widest with the suits were about 8 feet.
okay.
This guy is a more standard in size, so we're looking at 4 by 5 feet.
Well, I saw one that you had delivered via a van, and it would was one of the blue suits. It was like you had this one, like it had to go in through the window. I remember.
Yes, that's 5 by 8 feet in size.
That thing was huge.
I have to say, I had a little bit of a heart attack there because I really thought that we'd have to take the whole thing apart in order to get it through and restretch it, which always puts the artwork at risk. So I'm so glad that we didn't end up having to do that. But yeah, so sometimes I get the pre-made canvases that are a bit standard.
Now, Greg Vogel's got a really good question. He's popping in. How do you find inspiration especially when you're not feeling inspired? I mean, maybe you can bring this into how you find inspiration for your work.
Oh my goodness. So many places. Like I would tell people, it used to be through a lot of magazines. And then Pinterest came about and things like Tumblr. And then I was starting to see what was going on in the menswear industry internationally. And out of Europe specifically, I went to a menswear conference called PD Uomo. Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
I like the guitar pieces. And I took a lot of photos there for reference, tons of inspiration there. And I came back and I put a lot of my photos and I used them for reference in the pieces, whereas I was just freehanding before. And now, oh, thank you, Men's Style Chronicles.
You're going to get a lot of these, Dan. People absolutely love your artwork.
So the basically using my own reference material now. I used to wing it before, but now it's like it could be anything from the carpet that's here in the studio to a palette that I see on an advertisement, whatever it may be. I think, oh, those colors would go great together. Some florals, like you're saying, a bowl of fruit. All of a sudden, this is the background.
If people missed it, one of the things I love is you went and you saw pictures, you took images, and you used that as the inspiration. So now, but some of your early work, the ones that were, I think, a little bit more abstract, did you do the same thing?
So I'll give you an example of where I came from and where I began to go. So when you first reached out, you were really into my original line drawings, which were far more like graphic design.
Yeah. And by the way, you're getting a special request. If you have any tuxedo drawings, Muhammad's asking for some formal paintings. If you have any.
Oh, I've got tons of those.
Yes, so you do.
If you could see some of these original paintings, they're just simple line drawings. The shadows, I was just going in with just gray blocking. It was very, very graphic. And you can see like something in contrast. Right here, all of a sudden, it's like I'm doing full form jeans and shadowing and much more detailed guitar pieces. Adding in extra elements other than menswear, like focusing on a lot more movement. For example, like you were saying, formal wear, which I absolutely love. I did a bunch of military stuff, as you know.
Yep, I have some of the I have one of the military pieces.
The Western stuff popped out. Here we go. Here's a perfect example. Sorry not to.
Now it's okay. There we have some of the formal wear. Now, gentlemen, if you're watching this and you really want, one of the things I highly recommend is go over to her website right here, samshuter.com, and reach out to her. She will get you. You have some beautiful prints. And I've got 6 of your prints right here in my office. Yeah, they are amazing. And I highly recommend that you consider grabbing one of Sam prints, get them professionally framed, and you've got artwork in your office or at your home that's going to inspire and is going to literally stop traffic. I mean, it is that good.
Thank you.
Just beautiful stuff. And I've just been a huge fan.
You own most prints than anyone. I think you're my highest print collector.
Yes.
I was going to say, I have very few left. I don't even have the opportunity.
I need to get some more. I want to get an original still. So in case you guys are I do have a down payment on an original, but I've got to find the piece that, I'm really drawn to, which the boots.
That's how you're getting shotgun. And Tony's like, I'm going to put a down payment down. And as soon as I see the one that's for me, it's mine first.
Exactly.
You guys can hear how things have evolved. These are 2 guys that I shot at PD Uomo.
Look at the size of that, guys. Look at that.
And the details, they're pretty thorough. Like some of the stuff.
Is that an original?
This is.
Okay.
This So these are two guys in motion, and some of the background elements on this are, are elements that I came across like at a restaurant. Some tiles and things that are going to be coming through here later. We're going to be adding a lot more gel. We're going to be
So
trying to work on
Koki
those.
Kondo is saying that you need to get over to Japan and that you would get tons of inspiration over
Oh
there.
my goodness! What I see that coming out of Japan online blows my mind. That would be a trip, a dream come true. Truly, the fashion in Japan is next level.
Have you exported, besides to the United States and Canada, have you sent any of your artwork abroad to, let's say, Japan or Bangladesh? We're getting
Singapore.
questions for.
I've
Oh,
sent
Singapore.
yes, a few pieces. I think that's as far as I've gone. I had a deal fall through to head over to Hong Kong. The logistics were very complicated, and the shipping and the insurance far outweighed the cost of the painting itself. And I ran into that same scenario with a piece in Paris, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But these are things that I'm learning as I go and trying to figure out who to work
So,
with. And
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so many
not at all.
questions are coming in, Sam.
Yeah, do you
People
paint
are
in
asking.
acrylic or oil? Both.
Yep.
So I paint in acrylic for the most part. As far as oil, it's mostly the neons or some rich black, so that it's the colors are really, really deep and stand out. Or if I'm looking for a bit more of a sheen or gloss effect.
Cool.
But
Look at
most of
that.
this is
Yeah,
acrylic,
I love.
for sure.
I love. Now, what color exactly is that? I just want to say yellow, but it's like a mustard. There's something. Where did you get inspired for that color combination there?
So what's funny is that I realize I use so much blue naturally, and
Yeah.
I'm just in a bit of an earthier phase now with summer. It rolled around the corner, and I was feeling like florals and like you had seen the fruit stuff. And if you can see the color of his pants, I was just trying to mellow out my palette from the primary. I was just sort of craving a change, and we mix all of our own colors here. So you could see that I've got racks and racks of actual paint, branded paint. And then if you come over to these racks, you'll see that there are bins with the title of the painting. And each tub is a custom mixed color.
Now, I
for
think
the
the
particular
average guy,
jacket.
because we're getting questions, how long does it take to
How
make
long
one?
does
And I
it take me?
think,
You know
I
what?
mean,
If I'm doing nothing else, it could take me a week. But the truth is, these guys take me, depending on the size, and the only thing that would take a week would be something like 3x4 feet or 4x5 feet with my studio assistant. But realistically, I'm doing about 4 or 5 pieces at the exact same time. So something like this, especially when you start going into details and shadowing and reflections, these guys could be hanging around up to a month and a half.
yeah.
Um, oh, thanks a lot. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah,
The
Brian just noticed your
military,
military pieces. So if I think Brian's
like
hoping that you
military
get some
spaces.
Navy pieces up there, or maybe some Coast Guard.
Oh
But
yeah, right on.
because you haven't even touched that, you've got some amazing Army pieces. You've also got
Love.
one Marine Corps piece, if I remember correctly, maybe
I'm looking
two.
for it right now.
Yeah,
Let me see. And that spoke to you as well at the beginning. And I explored it very gently with a foundation called Fallen Patriots, which is pretty wonderful, which helps the children of veterans go to college. These guys were real beauties. This one in particular was 4x4 feet.
I have
Most of
that
them
piece.
were
That one's amazing. Yep.
medium in size, easier to ship. They were great. I was working with a military photographer at the time
Mhm.
who helped me. How about featuring a gorgeous green suit jacket? Oh, that would be cool. That would be very cool. I believe oh, you know what? I never ended up painting that green suede jacket. I did start one with a green suede jacket. These
Yeah,
guys are not come off
I
originally
think
too.
that's
That
the
is true, Jason. They're not uncommon actually. The 5x8 feet is getting up there. And they're much harder to ship. And if I don't take them apart, then I need an 18-wheeler to pass these puppies along to the next state. And then if you hear an example, these guys, this one is 13.5 feet wide. So if you can see, I don't know how close you can see, it's kind of hard in reverse, but they're made up of panels. So each panel is 6 feet high, so 72 inches by 27 inches across. So that's 6 panels together. Now, if I stack those panels, that's a lot easier to ship.
yeah.
Well, you. Oh, yeah. The Well, You piece with the American flag handkerchief coming out of it. That was really complicated. That was my first super detailed leather jacket. The first leather jackets that I did before Well, You were these guys here, literally just called the jacket 1, 2, 3, and 4. And Shot, the leather jacket company, actually reached out to do a collaboration at the time. And some of the founders of that company, which was pretty cool. It's amazing what Instagram has done. If you guys are on Instagram, you can find me at Sam Shuter, SAMSHUTER.
And again, just we've got the link right here to your website. So if they want to go to, they'll find Instagram from that. They'll also find Facebook, which you post. I'm more of like, I know on Facebook and stuff here. But what I love, Sam, is that you respond back to people. If I know some people are saying this, I want to be inspired by this. You've got a coloring book coming out. I know it's in the works. Your coffee table book is a ways out. I know, but yes.
Wow, Antonio, you are on it. Here is my first coloring book. I made originally just made 100 of them, but they sold out within 2 hours. So I called the printer right away and I said, can we make them out of 250? And then within 4 hours, all 250 of them were sold out, which had some of the original line drawings in them, some of the guys we loved originally. And those are super fun to color in. And now I just felt, 5 years later, it was time for round 2. And so we've been working away on those.
Now, Will's asking about the password on your website, Sam. I know that if people email you individually, you will actually let them, because it's something that you just want to make sure your prices and stuff are.
For sure.
For
sure, that I fully have the chance to explain to you what you're looking at, where those pieces are. Most of them are in the States and not in Canada. So if you email me at studio@samshuter.com, I will give you the password and I will give you the whole lowdown on what you're looking at, because a lot of the pieces look like thumbnails and they're really hard to tell what's going on. Yes, you can volunteer as a model for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many artists. Growing up, I was like, I feel like I'm all grown up. Growing up, who inspired me? I love Faile, Faile. They're 2 guys named Patrick out of Brooklyn, New York, and they do a lot of really cool graphic art, which I love. I was a huge Warhol fan. I went through all kinds of different stages, that with different people. Now, I'm a huge fan of Dana Watson, who's my neighbor and my co-landlord. Lots of me too. So we're in British country inspired. Oh yeah. Okay, but that's this guy. Wait till you see him. He is definitely British inspired. His jacket is actually going to be tweed. I'm just working on it. This is just layer 1. I don't know if you can see his pleated pants. We are only at the beginning stages of this guy. Look at his loafers. You'll see the background as it comes together. As far as painting goes, it's so layered, especially if you're going to try to show a suede or a crushed velvet or a tweed. Like, you got to keep going over it and over and over. And sometimes I'm using pastel, and sometimes I'm using pencil crayon, something to give it that brushed, pulled fabric effect. I have all kinds of markers and tools here. Actually, I'll show you my trusty little toolbox that slides around with me. I'm here on my roll chair all day, and then I'll go over to this guy here, and you'll see all of my markers, and you'll see all of my paint pens to go into the very detailed stuff. And you'll see these are my signing pens that I sign all my prints with. You can never have enough of those. And you've got some pastels happening here to help make the tweed. And you can never have enough pencil crayons or gold leaf oftentimes, or some of the fabric that I use for the cowboy stuff. Yeah. Which has to be essentially cemented on some of the leather fringe. These are. I didn't know
you cemented that stuff onto the cowboy pieces. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. The cowboy piece is my first foray into actual fabric, which was super cool. It was very, very time consuming and very delicate. It's super delicate to travel with, especially with temperature change. But these are some of the samples, because this is actual real brown leather that we spray painted. So I'm still experimenting.
Have you ever been to, I'm getting a question. Have you ever been to Malaysia?
Oh my God, no. What a dream.
No. Yeah. They want you to bring your artwork to Malaysia. Yeah, and by the way, we have a special request from Clay. He's saying, if you can put just a picture of you next to one. Okay, everyone, get your screenshot. Here we go. They want you in it.
I'm trying to get the yellow guy in there.
Yeah. Oh, you got both of them? All right, there we go. Get the screenshot, guys. There we go. Special. Hey,
so
everyone's.
It's not ultimate lighting in here, but if the lighting is so yellow and the ceilings are so high, that it's important to have big lamps like these guys here when it comes to for photo shoots.
Now, this is a really interesting question, is what about some bigger guys? Because a lot of the models we feature, they are these
Totally.
perfectly shaped individuals. Have you ever thought about like just a little bit more representation for bigger guys, maybe smaller guys, something like that?
So I have been asked that, and the truth is, because I'm working off reference photos from my travels, essentially,
Yeah.
or the models that I'm working here with locally, the ones that are willing to volunteer their time for the time being, that's what I've got at the moment. But when I find the perfect relationship or someone who's willing to offer their time or something like that, or I shoot someone when I'm away, yes, 100%, I would absolutely love to do that. I never used to even paint skin. Now I'm painting a lot more
You are.
skin
You
tones.
are.
And I'm mindful of that too. Like, I used to, it's important to me that it feels like it's every man and that people identify in
Yeah.
each individual one with the particular body language more than the color of their skin or their size. But it's evolving from line drawings
But
to
but
something.
let's talk also about the practicality of everything, because at the end of the day, you're not funded by a patron. You are an artist who is self-sustaining. You're selling your work,
Yeah.
you're making a living, you have obligations, you have people that work for you. So how is it that you've been able to do, I mean, it's a big question, but I mean, you're doing so much, but how is the business side? How has that been challenging for you? Has it been something that you feel that you've done better than many, or?
You know what? I feel extremely privileged to be able to do what I'm doing. And I would say that I thank my surrounding community more than anyone, like people who are just following that have turned into mentors like yourself. I mean, had I not read a couple of the books that you recommended, I'm sure that this year would have looked very different as things evolve. For the first time, I'm writing an SOP.
Nice, nice.
And just trying to systemize everything. But I started from I saved up all my bartending tips, and it's just going to that first art show, taking that plunge, and making
So
something
I,
out of
I
nothing,
actually
and then
didn't know this. Can you talk about like what did you do before you were making money as an artist? How did you support yourself?
So actually, I was in the service industry for about 7 years, and then simultaneously working in film production, which is what I went to school for. And then I was just painting in my bedroom, and my sister encouraged me to enter an art show, and I did it. It was not juried, and then I was still bartending for about the first 3 years, and then I
Mhm.
made the prints, which actually helped sustain the whole operation because there were only so many paintings I could make at once.
Yeah.
And as I leveraged the income from the prints, I was able to eventually, 5 years later, get my first studio, which was only like, 150 square feet. And then the next one was 400 square feet. And then the next one was 1,500 square feet. And so I've just been chipping away very organically. And, some months I'm able to have an extra assistance in the studio, and other months I have to sort of keep it tight, keep the operation pretty lean, so I can see what happens when some of the galleries have huge allotments of work before I'm able to keep to output. Change of decades. Have you seen the same trends of art has changed a lot, has remained consistent over time? That's a good question. I think art definitely has trends 100%, much like the fashion world. I would agree with that. And I think that people latch on and see something that they know is selling well that becomes popular. All of a sudden, there's 17 artists at Art Basel in Miami that look like Mr. Brainwash, and you're thinking, that you could see the trends catch on. I definitely think things go in cycles. I believe most art is a form of recycling in some shape, way, or form in terms of like the elements that we see and that we bring into the work. It's not I'm not the first person to paint a rose, that's for sure, right? So if you look at a lot of people's work, you can see lots of inspiration and things as one large combination. As a supply chain manager, hello from New Zealand.
Yeah,
I
we're
love some
getting
SOPs.
hellos all over the place. People
That's
just
so
saying,
fun. You know what? SOPs are very new to me.
yeah.
But I realized from some suggestions that you had made, Antonio, a few months ago, was that there is a system that is subconscious to me already. You know what I mean? You get an inquiry, you send back, you
Yep.
expedite by sending back the same information. What do you do next? When you're shipping, you need the insurance number, the tax ID, the address, the phone number, whatever. And when you have all that stuff listed, you can just streamline. So that's a big deal for me, especially when you're trying to wear all the hats, for sure. Because my ideal operation is about 7 people, and I'm basically just operating as 6 of them. So Fashion photography. Oh my God. Yes, they do. One of my favorite um, photographers, which you'll find his profile a lot on my Instagram at Sam Shooter. Fabrizio is an amazing guy. He sends me all kinds of photos to work with. I actually work a lot with photographers, one in Montana for the cowboy stuff, a military photographer, and they get a percentage of the painting sale. So it works really nicely. Some of them I pay up front for the license to use it, and others I do a percentage of the sale, and then others are just my friends, and they're very happy to see the work being put to use in another way.
Yeah. We got
Or
Isan out there, and he's saying, what an amazing artist, from bartender to the best menswear artist on the planet.
Thank you, Style Jumper. I was like saying thanks for tuning in. I don't know if everyone's coming in at the same time. Like I was telling Antonio, there's not a whole lot of work up on the wall now because most of my stuff was just recently shipped out to LA and Aspen. Where I have another gallery, and I just
Yep,
opened up
and you
Dallas.
got two galleries, one in Aspen, another one in LA that has a lot of your. Do you still have the artwork in Miami as well?
Yes. Well, not a lot of pieces. I have an agent there. So there's about 4 or 5 pieces there, but I'm most people who I sell to in Miami primarily live in Dallas or New York or other places. It's usually where it's their second home. So I ship there more than I exhibit permanently. Um, as like, as far as the gallery goes, you guys can see all the little details here. I'm using a lot of painter's tape to get some of the lines on. Um,
Now, guys, if you're just tuning in and
American.
you want to learn more about Sam Shooter, please check out the website. I put it right here, and you can go over. You can follow her on Instagram, over on Facebook, and you can see her artwork. She's giving us an inside view to the pieces, something that very few people, I think, ever get to see. So,
Yeah, this is fun. This is fun. I love having visitors in my studio, this many at one time.
I know, and you don't even have
Yeah,
to worry about, the whole COVID thing.
yeah, I know how to do it in a socially distanced way.
Now, we got
There's here, I'll give you
Lou
the
is asking really quick the question again. Do you work with more than one piece at a time? Now, you said that you do. You work on about 4 to 5. But can you talk about why do you do it that way? What's about, I mean, you hear on one side that you should be very focused and spend 100% of your time on one thing. But it sounds like for you, the way that you work is splitting your attention.
You know what? That works best for me as someone who needs to be constantly stimulated and is so inspired by the buzz of life and colors that it's actually more helpful for me to stay inspired and not get frustrated or bored and or come back to another piece with a new idea. If you don't step away or don't take a minute to step away, it's hard to plan your next move. So sometimes when I create a little bit of space in between pieces, it lets me see them objectively and reconfigure their composition to make sure that they're showing as best as they can. So yeah, I would say, I mean, eventually these, if you can see how many canvases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the back there, there's this big round behind me. All of those guys will be halfway along at some point. And I'm going to be hopping around because also it's easier to have visitors when I do, and then they can see where they're headed. Not necessarily what they're going to look like when they're finished, but get an idea for what's
Can you
coming.
name the galleries and let people know exactly if they happen to be in your city, in LA, Aspen, Miami, and where else can they see your artwork in person?
So where they can see artwork physically in Aspen, it's Royal Street Fine Art on Main, and then Axiom is on Main in Santa Monica in LA. Mark and Jay over at Axiom Gallery, and I've been talking to some people in Dallas, Texas specifically, but those are agents. In Greenwich, Connecticut, those are agents, as is Miami. So these people are kind of people that do pop-ups. There's all kinds of events that I'll list on my website and that I'll put on my story on Instagram for anyone who's in town or might want to send their friends or might want to get some VIP access, can email me some tickets should they be in that city at the time. But yeah, so it changes. But right now, in terms of physical work, you can go to Royal Street Fine Art in Aspen and Axiom Contemporary in Los Angeles. How does personality come to sound constitute push people abroad in the paradigms? So I'm not styling them as much as I'm working with people who sort of already have their own flair. Though I did consider working with a couple of menswear stores originally, but you know what? there's a very distinct difference in men who sort of let the clothes wear them versus men who wear the clothes. There's just like this energy, this confidence, not to mention tailoring when you know it's made for them and they already own it, fits their shoulders perfectly. When they move, I get the best shadows, which is pretty important. When they run and jump, I'm getting the right shadows where they need to hit. So these guys usually already have their own wardrobes. Inside glance, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Clay. Honestly, I loved it. I love doing that stuff. It's fun to do some of the more thematic things. I had a good time with the music stuff. I had a good time with the Western stuff. I'm still doing some Western pieces, as you know. I did that 7-foot long drum set, which was a lot of fun. I'm still sort of scratching a few itches. I never went to art school, so this is my way of my art school. Hey, Saskatchewan. What's up, Chris? This is so fun. Here, I'll show you an example. Like here's some Italian tile coming through. I don't know if you can see the pencil lines or if it's too hard. Hold on. There we go. You guys, that will obviously be painted soon. It's sort of just like stenciled out. Hey, Germany. Here we go. We've got, I put some like the credenza and the lights and things like that in for some photography, which gives people context when you're putting a painting up. Here we go. We could see like all of my brushes and the different sizes that I work with. You never really know what you're going to need. These are things that I'm still learning. I know it's been 8.5 years, but I would have to say that my art studio assistants, my studio manager, my painting assistants have all taught me more about what I should and shouldn't do and what you learn in school as far as, technical skill goes. And like protective wear, spray painting. I use a lot of spray paint as well, which is a lot of fun, but it's very fast.
Brian's making a good point, like that both of us happen to be people that are following our dreams. And can you talk about how did you have the courage to really go after what you wanted?
I feel very privileged to say that I have a very supportive family and group of friends. I keep really good people close by who encouraged me to go after my interests and pursue them. And, when I was focusing on how to monetize them, it doesn't always work out to monetize your hobby. I did go through a period of time where I felt like I needed to find another hobby, which I turned more to music and other interests because, what was once a release does eventually become like your job. And it's a lot more technical than I realized. But I would say it's like one little risk at a time. So it's like that first risk was like, okay, you put your bartending tips into a show. It taught me how to talk to people face to face. It taught me how to negotiate. It taught me, everything about displaying your work, the psychology of display and marketing and things like that, where to promote, where I should be posting things. And then it was just one little micro risk at a time. And then that mental muscle just built until you become more comfortable with taking chances. And then here I am. I mean, not in a million years. If you asked me, 5 years ago, if I would ever have a studio of this size, I would think that was crazy. And would have no idea how I got here. So
now,
just sort of inching forward.
We talked about inclusiveness a little bit earlier and talking about like for bigger guys, smaller guys. And one thing I noted, because Eson's asking the question, what about men of color? You just started painting.
I did.
Skin. And this is new because
not
before
long ago,
it was like it was just the suits.
I have a few.
And if you're not familiar, by the way, Eson over at the Style Jumper is a good friend of mine. And, he's African-American over on the East Coast, an amazing Instagram. If you want to check out some inspiration, Sam, you want to go check out his, he's got some great photos, really some nice pieces. And he brings in style with it as well. But this is what I love this because you're just now getting into this. And obviously it brings so much more to your artwork because there's tons of different colors you can bring in.
For sure. And to be honest, I mean, I've painted some beautiful Black and Indian men, people that I've worked with and I collaborate with all kinds of different people with different backgrounds. And I've sort of.
By the way, we've got a large number of guys out there from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. So if you guys are out there, make sure to say hi in the comments.
Please do. You know what? I'm looking for a portfolio piece of him now, but if you actually go to my website under the selected works and get a heads up for the man in the blue suit. He was the first married man I ever painted. And I think that will speak to you. He's got a flamingo in the background.
Got it.
And
I think I
I
remember
sold
this one
to a
too.
wonderful guy named Jermaine. Um,
Now, what are these SS piece is really great. They're classic
ah,
cars. Are you?
you know what's funny that you should say that? I'm about to paint my first Porsche and send that over to LA. I
Yeah.
really, really loved doing that piece. That's one of my favorite cars, that Chevrolet, um, the Super Sports car, which also the first pair of jeans I ever painted. You know, trying to achieve the look of a car and a bumper and the reflection of that stuff, like metal and things like that, were all very new to me.
Ooh, wow. That is new.
Again, it's through the plastic, so it's a little glossy, but you can find this one on my website as well. And just getting his cell phone in the pocket in the back was challenging but fun to show that the jeans were worn out, and
Uh-huh.
getting the reflection in the metal so it actually appeared to look like a real car bumper was challenging.
And what I
But
love is that you don't just focus in on suits. I love the Western work. You're bringing in the guitars, instruments. So
okay,
obviously your music background in there. So I mean, you've got a variety of work out there.
so much stuff out there. Hey, Ireland. Oh, guys, Ireland. Of course, I forgot. I'm the worst. So, new gallery in Ireland called Soul, SOL Gallery in Dublin. I just shipped them 3 pieces. You can go see my work there physically as well. Um, was I? That's a good question. If you watch a video that's on my website that I put together, I pulled some footage from when I was, uh, probably as young as your kids, Antonio. A couple of your girls, probably. I don't know. Maybe I was like, or maybe even younger than your girls, 5, 6 years old, and
Your
I'm
mom
drawing
talked
in
about this. Your
class.
mom talked about this. I remember.
I was just like going to town, drawing,
Yeah.
and always wanted to be in art school. And so, yes, I was naturally drawn to it. Did I think it would become this? Absolutely not. I don't know if you can call doing like a pigeon with like 3 little prong toes and some with a Sharpie marker talented, but I started somewhere. That's for
Now, I
sure.
have no idea what this question is about. I'm about to bring it up, but apparently somebody's asking, how do you draw with a drumstick? How do you paint with a drumstick?
Oh wow, you guys don't miss a beat. Literally, no pun intended. The drumstick is in is in my paint jar. That is too funny. You know what? I did play drums for a few years when I was much younger, which is what inspired my drum piece, which you can also find on my website. But sometimes I just walk around tapping, tapping
Yeah.
my drumstick. It's my directorial cue. I just like to point things out and say, "Oh, look at that! Look at that! We got to edit there, right there." No,
Yeah.
they keep me moving. I tap them all over the place. That's
Now the
funny. And I think
question popped up, like, why aren't more artists doing work like this? That's one thing. I mean, as I started thinking about it, I'm like, you
that's an amazing
focused in
question.
and you've found this kind of like little niche. Why aren't there more people doing this?
As far as having like focusing on one particular like theme,
Yeah, or just like the
okay.
menswear stuff.
So, the menswear thing is my family's background's in the textile industry. And, my grandfather, my father, my uncle, my aunt, everyone, a lot of people in my background worked on a street called Chabanel in Montreal, which, had tons of warehouses filled with fabric and inspiration for me when I was younger.
Mhm.
And I sort of this is super organic. And I used to draw bow ties and neckties with my father, who had a great necktie collection, especially from his travels working in the industry, even though most of my family were in the women's wear chapter of things. But I think that there are people who focus on certain things. There are artists who just paint Western or who do just music or just do sports. Um, you know, if you can monetize what you're doing, great. If you can stick to a theme, great. Like, as you know, I'm experimenting with other things. Suits are my number
Mhm.
one. I will definitely always continue to experiment because that's something I crave. But the suit thing was organic. It wasn't like I thought, oh, this hasn't been done before. This would be a great marketing thing. This sort of just came to me because if you look at all my drawings earlier on, they are of men in bow ties and ties, and probably trying to emulate my father to some degree. And some of those earlier videos of me doodling are doodling men in suits, funny enough. And so the interest evolved. I started seeking it out online more, and then I started traveling to take those photos. And then I've been meeting people like yourself.
Yeah. Well, again, we've got people right now from all over the world. I see Mukesh Kumar out there. We've also got Kyle Swinderman and Kyle. I know Kyle. You see, he actually works with me a bit at Real Men Real Style in writing. And Kyle's asking, and you addressed this earlier about how you were inspired a bit by Warhol. You've also have some very specific artists, which I think a lot of us maybe don't know that you were inspired by.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many friends that I love that are such amazing artists, like Tim Okamura, my buddy Ben Johnston, also very graphic, amazing work. Another guy that I love following is Jerry Rugg. These are a lot of Toronto artists that I'm referencing. I think I'm attracted to very graphic work. Like if you look at this large scale piece behind me, there's a lot of stenciling in there. And things that do have a very graphic vibe to them, where they could be replicated or stamped, or have that feeling. And then and everything I do is pretty high contrast. So if you see, like even in a shirt, like I'm attracted to stuff like this. When you go and shoot in Florence, Italy, and that sun is beaming down from above, you're getting the best shadows and the best reference material. And so that caught my eye, and that's usually what I'm looking at when I'm looking for inspiration as to what the next piece is going to be, and if I feel like I can work with that particular image.
And when is your calendar coming out?
So I don't have a calendar. Funny, I should probably make one because that would be a lot of fun. I've even been looking to explore making a puzzle, especially during COVID. Yeah. They're all there's so many options. The truth is that if you're going to do it well, it comes down to having someone who's going to manage the quality of the product and the shipping of the product. And I'm at a stage now where I can't even keep up with the demand for inventory, because people who have given me deposits like yourself, or who have, their house is just being finished and they're like, we want to come see, 3 pieces or whatever. Most of my stuff is out in the States. My galleries are only just opening back up now. And so I need to start producing more work here in studio. So as much as I want to jump on the coloring book and the calendar and the puzzles and all those things, I can't say for sure about the date. That the coloring book should have already been out, is the truth. But I think I'm going to take some extra time to make it more detailed, because the first one was very kid friendly. And this second one is actually a bit more for adults. So it's very, very detailed, and the lines are very fine.
Have you ever had any bow ties in any of your work? Just curious.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Rasmus, if you go to my website, again, under selected, you will see a variety of bow ties, especially with the tuxedo pieces. But then also, if you go back to work from a couple of years ago, you'll see that I did a lot of quirky guys that look sort of like they're in a 9-to-5 work suit, just wearing a bow tie, loving life. Let me see here. I'll show you a perfect example before I move on here. No, actually,
now I noticed some of us are asking questions that we actually addressed a little bit earlier. And Sam wants to travel around the world, obviously with the situation going a little bit difficult, but yes, want to get some work out to Southeast Asia. Have you worked in the UK though?
I haven't, and it's funny because I tried to do that, and again, like I was saying, the logistics and the shipping are very expensive. It would mean that my artwork would have to really go up in price, and it's already quite high. But so we're getting there.
Now, can you talk? I'm gonna take a couple minutes to walk us through actually how many layers go on, because that's one thing that blew me away. Is I thought, and again, not being a painter myself, okay, she puts on 1 layer, maybe 2 layers here, but you stack on the layers, and the quality of the paints you use. I mean, you were explaining some of, you build your own frames, my understanding, and I mean, everything in here is high quality, and this is a process.
It is, and I'll give you an example. Here's like a way to understand what you mean by layers. So, for example, on this guy right here, so we painted the black lines. That's there for reference, and also knowing that I just wanted to get that 80s pattern effect happening. But this was a perfect opportunity for me to add texture, and I was inspired that I wanted to see some texture in the light once this guy was hung up. So we added some molding paste and some gel, if you can see. And then I'm going to add another layer of it, because once it dries, it flattens out. And then I'm going to paint it black again. And then I'm going to, once it has that black layer, we're going to go over it and maybe paint the lines themselves individually. So that's just to give it a really like building anything else, like, doing clay work or something. That's just to give it a texture and make sure the colors are opaque. When you use, primaries, a lot of them are not opaque. They're very translucent, so they take multiple layers. If you look at something like a necktie, think of, in order to achieve the shadows, like you're working off the same base color, but you're adding, black, you're adding white, you're doing highlights, you're doing more orange here, but this got like a rust coming through. You're gonna have to add some brown. You're going to need to add some burnt umber, which is like a browny orange color. And you need to sort of work a palette so that you get all of the different levels of color in order
Yeah.
to create the shadows. So I can try to show you a dry palette, but here's an example. So you've got this one base color, which is like turning into some peaches and some rose shades, and it's sort of expanding. We've got a beige here that turned into some gray and some brown. These things are all evolving. So here we go. Let's say I'm working on a belt. That looks like black, but it's actually brown. And then you add a little bit more of a gray and white in it. You get a lighter brown, darker brown. All that stuff is going to create the shadows, so that actually resembles a belt. And then you can do something as simple as working on, that's simple, working on
Look at
shoes,
that. Yeah.
patent shoe. So you just have this is just black. It looks like just black and white, right?
Yeah, I got a nice
And
little tassel loafer there. It's
and
beautiful.
so, which is funny because it's implied, right? But if you
Yeah.
look close, there's no real defined tassel. It's just where the light and the shadow
True.
hits.
Yep.
So you can make that out. Now, if you look over, it's not just black and white. There's actually some gray blue in there, which if you look at any black under the light, there's a gray blue sheen color coming through, which just sort of speaks to the realism and implying that giving it that realistic flair to it. And this, if you look, this looks like leather, but if you look close, you're looking at a white shadow mixed with some gray, and it's fading out in a gradient. I love glazing. You know what? I used to glaze work, and I used to do a nice sheen at the end. But now I'm finding that if you really want to see the texture, as opposed to leveling it up with gloss, I've stopped doing it. I do spray it with a protective layer so that the pastel doesn't smudge and things like that. But I no longer gloss the paintings like I used to, because I find that you can get more texture.
Can you talk about like what kind of people appreciate this? I mean, who's coming in and buying these pieces? Can you talk a little bit about like, are they businesses? Are they collectors?
So you know what I would say? I would say half people are first-time art buyers, which is really fun and unique, and the other half are pretty intense collectors, like international collectors, especially the ones that I'm shipping to in places like Singapore or Texas or Connecticut. The truth is, I would say they're made up of mostly eclectic, self-made, entrepreneurial type people. For my prints, I would say, it's a lot of gifts or first-time art purchases, males between 30 and 50 years old. Or I have had a couple actual female lawyers purchase for their office, which is really fun. I would say women and men purchase my original work equally, whether it's a man for his office or a woman for her home or her office. I used to think that I wasn't able to tell who was who, and then I started to record it, and I realized that it was split down the center, depending on who shared the decorative role at home or what inspired them. Some women say that they're attracted to some of the men that I paint, which is really fun.
Yeah.
Some men say they're attracted to some of the men that I paint, which is also really fun. It's hard to say, the originals go all over the place. Some of the ones that go to the galleries, it's unfortunate when I don't always know who the owner is at the end of the day, but the people who buy out of the studio, that's pretty rewarding.
Which is actually one of the ways that, when you guys, if you're watching this, go check out Sam's website and, spread the word. If you like what you see here, I know for me, you post so many of the pictures, like as you're going through, I mean, the image is right there. You can put it as maybe you'll be putting out some screensavers. I find that having just your prints, it's an inspiration when I'm in my office and I see the colors and I see, it's a reminder of, hey, what I'm doing, what industry I'm in, and why actually, one of the reasons I love this industry, and just, the clean lines, how it can make a man look amazing. I also like how you bring in a little bit of, there's always interesting little things about there. Like a person sees the fit and look of it, but then they see the tattoos, or they see, like, right there, we've got a chain. We've got a little style detail which grabs your attention, and you're like, oh, I got to look into this. The pocket square, the pin, all those little details.
Totally.
Now, did that pin actually have texture on it? Or is it sitting off? Because it looks like it.
It looks like it because there's shadow underneath it, but no,
Wow.
that is flat at the moment. But that will have texture on it, and it's fun. And I will credit the guys that I'm shooting for sure for their attention to detail with regards to accessorizing. But sometimes we just add little elements for fun. Like this is my buddy Perry who I painted, and he loves music. And so I gave him a little tattoo with a music note there as an ode to Perry, and a shout out for standing and posing for me for that photo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Craig. So yeah, I mean, the details vary. We add a lot of fun stuff. We play and add different chains and things like that. We've added watches that weren't there before, watches we've wanted to feature, people we've worked with before. So that's really fun. How can you keep updated? So if you actually go to my website, there on my contact page, you can add in your email and join our mailing list, which I only really send a newsletter out once or twice a year. But truthfully, everything you'll need to follow will be on my Instagram. Thanks, Gaurav. So I'd like to invite all of you to join me on Instagram, and I will let you know as soon as the calendar is out. Now that you've planted that seed, I'll let you know when the coloring book is complete. I'll show you some more pages. Here's a perfect example, Antonio, of the cowboy. Now, look at the details in the scarf alone are kind of challenging. I might need to lighten that up a little bit because it might even be hard to get a pencil crayon in between the lines. But this is an example of how detailed we're going for the next one. So that'll be fun.
Are you going to have the boot? Are you going to bring the boot into?
Oh yeah, it. For sure.
Look at that.
And these are going to be, times are tough and it can be a little stressful, or there's a lot of Zoom calls and conference calls. And so it's a lot of fun to make these things for people to sort of just pencil away and color in to soothe that other part of the brain. Advice for first-time art buyers, mostly advice for all art buyers, is to just purchase things that you love, purchase things that you want to look at that make you happy, and buy within your means for sure. Because, I've been in a situation many times where I've fallen in love with a piece, and I knew it was a little bit more than I was able to spend. And when you look at it, you're going to be reminded of that. So I would say, the example is I have 4 sizes of prints for that reason. Some are signed and numbered as part of a collector's edition, and others are not, but that's okay because people sort of get into the market gradually. But more than anything, you should love what you're buying. You should, make sure that it's affordable. And if you are buying something that is signed and numbered, make sure it's authentic. Ask for the paperwork. Ask for the source. Don't just accept anything that someone claims to be an original. You have to be very careful with that. I've been duped in my own history of buying certain pieces to only then find out when trying to insure them that they were not in fact authentic. So you have to be really careful. And there's so many artists. I would encourage you to buy from living artists. There's so many talented people out there. Now, if you are looking to collect, now is a great time to get in with a bunch of young artists. There's a lot of work out there and available. The pandemic has made things a bit complicated, but it's a good time to get great deals on artwork for sure. So these are all things to consider, unless you had any more specific questions, but those are some of the pointers off the bat that I would suggest for sure.
We're getting questions. One of them was interesting. If you could spend 24 hours with any artist, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It's funny. I would probably think of a musician more naturally before I would a painter.
Well, that's an artist. Yeah.
So as far as art goes, it could be anyone like Prince or, oh goodness, some of the old Motown artists that I love so much that I listen to while I paint. I get so inspired by music, and we just get into the groove of things here, and it inspires colors and energy and things like
I
that.
remember
So
you talking about this, how you listen to music as you're painting, and
totally. I mean, I'm new on the audiobooks. I went from podcasts to audiobooks. Um, and I don't know. I would say it would definitely be like in the music era. It's honestly it's too hard to pick. But it's funny that Prince was like came at the top of my head, or maybe I'd throw in a little bit of Aretha Franklin or Dave Matthews or God knows. I'm all over the board.
so I like this
Self
comment.
portrait? No,
Totally
I've never done
random
self
here. We got
portrait.
Ryan Holiday that he looked up how to make up hot sauce, and he came here. I think this
So
says good things about
nice.
us. That this is just a hot
Because this is
broadcast right
hot.
now.
Because these
Yeah,
paintings are on fire, Ryan. I don't know if you've seen
exactly.
what's happening here, but these guys, nothing's hotter than these guys right now.
Now,
You just, I guess I've done a
what
completely
have you?
there.
Is there any a self portrait? Is it ever going to happen?
You know, I've always thought about it. Maybe it will. And when it does, it'll be up on my Instagram and you'll see it. And you'll
Yeah,
say, I inspired that.
yeah.
Famous Frankfurt said it was magic. Oh, that's cool. I'm going to take a screenshot and I'm going to look him up. Thank you. I actually don't know Frank's work, but that actually interests me a lot. I love when people make recommendations because, to be honest, when you don't go to art school and it's not something that you are intentionally focused on in that sense and how organic this came to be, there are a lot of artists that I don't know about that I would really love to look up. And do I feel like they're underrated? Absolutely, absolutely. When it comes to government funding or just the focus in the general public, I think people listen to, they see, they taste art and culture around the clock. And I think that we're so jaded by it that we don't even appreciate how important it is for your mental health, for your growth, your inspiration, everything.
Yeah.
Commission art from local artists. We still don't know. That's amazing. Commissions are great. Commissions really help artists get by. Not everyone does them. I don't like to do them too much. They sort of slow me down at times when I'm under a lot of deadlines. It's hard. It's I really love when a buyer walks in and falls in love with something. That's important to me and part of my experience. But there are so many talented and technical painters that do such incredible work and commissions and anything from a family portrait to something large and abstract. I highly recommend working with artists if you get the opportunity. It's super inspiring for a lot of people, for sure. Then works based on movies. Oh, cool. I haven't. I did some Blue Jay baseball players for the Toronto Blue Jays. I have not, but I've been told that some of the work looks a bit like Superman. So if you look at my old sticker, maybe that's Clark Kent. Hard to say. But no, not specifically. I've been asked to do it, but there's a fine line between experimenting and sort of just jumping on the bandwagon of anything that you see or are suggested. It's dangerous territory because I'll lose focus. It's so hard to focus as it is. Oh wow, yeah. Will, how did you find that? Yes, I did paint a guitar case for John Mayer when he came into town for a concert. Um, we did that with Podge. That was really interesting. We took a lot of elements from pieces that were already painted. We cut them out and we used a glue and a molding paste and some gloss to combine those elements on the guitar case so they fit perfectly. And then on top of that stuff, we painted additional elements so that they would sort of blend and flow nicely to give to him as a gift. Yeah, I've painted a lot of shoes. I haven't painted just paintings of shoes. I actually have a friend that does some shoe painting specifically. I've had a lot of brands contact me asking me if I would do just shoes. They're a lot of fun. You can tell that the different style of loafers that I go off of, they're some are a penny, others are like Old English. They're fun. I mean,
Yeah.
we're trying to develop them. I sometimes feel like I'm only as good as my reference photo when it comes to painting leather because it's hard to know where the highlights go. I used to sort of just wing it, and then it looked like their leg was sort of bent off too much to the side. So the reference photos certainly help. But here's another example, another kind of shoe.
I love that we can actually feel the texture, that we can see the suede, or at least I can.
Yeah, and he's not even done yet. So we're gonna go over him with some pencil crayon and give him a bit more of a fabric brush. Change the thoughts on this. I'd like to see the artwork in the James Bond film. How about that?
There
But
we
yeah, it's
go.
funny because I actually have done some tuxedo pieces, and a lot of people have felt like they were based off him. He's not one of them, but he is in this size.
Mhm.
Um, so he does look like, there are a lot of them that are in motion in tuxedos. They have that sort of effect, with the dark Chelsea boot. He definitely could be very James Bondy and on the run. Another example of a detailed shoe that we had done in the past, which is really great. Painting with Susu of the Spirit, old school pulp comic book hero. That's cool. I've never even heard of him, so I'm gonna look him up. I love it. This one's got more of a James Bond feel.
Well, Sam, we are at the hour, so need to wrap things up here. Again, everyone, if
Thanks,
you want to
guys.
learn more about Sam, website's right here, samshuter.com. Check her out. Go follow her on Instagram. Go check out her Facebook page. So much out there that yes, you guys can check out and go check her out. That's it. Sam,
Thanks,
thank you so much for being on today. Really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. So
Yeah.
great talking. I'll have to invite you back in when all the walls are filled.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you got to keep sending me, the early views of the pieces. That
Oh
way I
yeah,
get
you
first
know it. You're
dibs.
next in line for sure. Ciao, guys.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.